Good morning and welcome to Morning Vibe. My name is Remmy Majala and thank you so much for joining us on this glorious Tuesday, if I say so myself. It's a beautiful day and today we're looking at your health and wellness matters, all your needs for that particular aspect, and today we're looking at identity. You know, identity crisis. We want to demystify it because you know what? It happens at every turn, at every age, and funny enough, until we leave this beautiful earth, we'll still be trying to figure out and exploring who we are or who we are meant to be or what our destinies are supposed to look like. Now, for that matter, in studio, I have my guest with me for this conversation today, and her name is Marianne Waruguru. She is a founder, psychologist, and trainer, and her, of course, company, if I may say, organization is Therapy by Marianne. That is Therapy by Marianne. Marianne, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me again.
No, you're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome. It's a very important conversation that we want to have today. And we have our question of the day. We're asking you, do you think it's normal to question your identity even as an adult? Do you think it's normal to question your identity even as an adult? Would love to hear your thoughts on the same. Our handles on Facebook and X are at K24 TV, and our WhatsApp line is right there on your screens. Do you think it's normal to question your identity even as an adult? Now, Marianne, is it normal?
Absolutely.
Is it normal to question your identity?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they think about identity crisis, they usually just picture teenagehood. You know, that is the time that we are trying to understand ourselves and who we are, but also as an adult. I usually say, you have never been 20, you have never been 30, you've never been 40 before. So every time you go through some different life transitions, of course you're going to question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at character. And when a young child is being, trained or disciplined in particular, mannerisms or way, things to do, things not to do, it's a very crucial time. But we are also in a very crucial moment. What are those few things that a parent or a guardian usually inputs into a child to, quote unquote, form this thing called character?
Definitely, character is how you are, your behaviors and all these things. And whenever a child is young, definitely they need the guidance of the parents. We usually say when you're born, you have a clean slate. So definitely, as a parent, is correcting them, is disciplining them, is showing them the way. This will inform their character. And if you see a child misbehaving and having disciplinary issues, definitely it goes back to the parenting. So it's very crucial for a parent to instill all these things, because we say the formative stages are 0 to 7. So if you do a good job at that time, definitely they will carry that with them in their adulthood.
Okay, so let's put all this context of what we are speaking about in present day society, because back in the 90s it was different, and before that. So I want to speak about more of this current time. And you can find that with some parents or guardians, they have hands off almost, to a very disturbing, a percentage of not really handling their children. And then you'll find many teachers complaining that the responsibility is all ours. The parents come, leave the children here, and when you have cases of high indiscipline, some parents may not even be aware how their children got into it, given we're living in a time where parents are working very hard, or guardians for that matter. So there's a perspective of work, there's perspective of just trying to hustle here and there, and then now you're leaving other people to deal with this thing. So just paint us that perspective of parenting in present day society.
Yeah, like you said, it's usually called permissive parenting, where you are giving too much permission to a child who is basically a child. They don't know how to navigate life, and it's unfortunate. Just as you mentioned, there are different causes for this. There is the recently I was just speaking to single parents. For example, you know, if you're a single parent, then you don't really have the support and you have to be the breadwinner. So then someone maybe hires a house help to take care of the children, and they don't really take part in how the child is developing. And that can be dangerous because you don't really know what this child is doing. Maybe there are certain influences out there, or even what they are watching. We see even children being silenced by watching Cocomelon or being given their tablets. So you find that we really need to be hands-on in terms of raising our children, because it will also impact on their values. They get to understand who they are. But if you're away, then you get to pay for that later on when you don't understand who this child is.
Okay, so how practical should a guardian parent or caregiver be in this time, especially when their focus is, I want a particular character or discipline to be formed in my child, especially teenagehood. You can imagine our young people are growing up faster than they should be because of basically even what they're eating, what they are experiencing, everything around them is basically, you know, pushing them in the direction of grow up, you know. So it's not even some things that we can say, oh, they're just an indisciplined lot. No, it's a lot of factors put together. Now we have this, you know, youngins, if I may say, who, you know, are maybe 19, but with the minds of 25-year-olds because of everything they're taking in, everything they're experiencing, you know. So when we look at character like that, how can we explain it?
And you see, what we say is we need conscious parenting, and what that means is you just be present. You ask how practical is it with the way things are changing. Even from Kitambo, human beings have always been evolving. Like even our parents used to say, oh, the children of nowadays are different.
Yeah,
so even as we keep moving, it will still be the same. But when you are a present parent, you are conscious of what is happening in your child, then you can be able to mold them, you can be able to correct them. But then also we have to be very careful to also not want them to be mini-me's. You know, sometimes there is also that aspect where in as much as I'm shaping my child, I'm also dictating how they should be, and that they
You're
should
living
be,
vicariously.
right?
Through
the
them.
things that you didn't do, you want them to do.
Yeah, the life that you didn't live.
Yeah, that's not what we are saying. It's just that there is a balance between allowing them to be who they want to be, because we have different personalities, we are just different, but also be correcting them whenever they are going wrong. So when you're there with them, and like I mentioned, when we start earlier, the better, because ideally if you don't start early, then you get to have challenges later on, and you know, make hay while the sun shines. That's what they say.
Right.
Yeah.
So now let's take a look at now at the core of identity crisis. Like you said rightfully, teenagehood. You know, when you're in your 20s, 30s, you encounter different sets of problems. You know, like if you're a single guy, girl, you get married. You're now, you assume the role of a married person, or you assume the role of a mother, just many things that will make you, even if you're a CEO, you have to assume the role, and now you're in leadership. You see, you're assuming a role which add on to your character. So because we always argue about people ending up badly or good, unakwanga msembaya, sio nakwangaje, unaona, or someone says, nakwanga tu hivyo, you know. And people don't like, you know, being called things that they associate as negative or makes their character look weak. People like the strong, powerful, you know, things. So I think what I'd like to get out of this conversation is the dynamics that one says, okay, here I am experiencing an identity crisis, for us to demystify what is this exactly that one is experiencing, what is happening to your character. Do we ever get to know who we really are until the end, or do we have just mental problems like the people are saying until the end, you know?
Definitely everything can be changed. However, you usually find like things like personality, the way you are in terms of strengths, in terms of how you show up. And usually, even when I'm taking my clients through therapy, I tell them we need to be defining ourselves by who we are, not what. What is the external? It's the jobs, it's the children, it's being a parent and all these things. And that keeps changing. And that's what brings the crisis. Because one moment I'm a teenager, the other one I'm supposed to be a young adult. Now I am 30, I need to be an adult, but I feel like I am not yet an adult. Then you get married and all these things keep changing. However, at the core of everything, there is who you are as a person. There is what are my strengths, like I am ambitious, I'm smart, or I am loving, I am caring, all these things. And those are what should be defining you. And also, even as you're questioning, you know, who am I supposed to be as a wife, remember also the who you are as an individual, as a person from the beginning. And that will really help you to stabilize yourself as you're learning and adjusting now to these different changes.
I see. Now, people usually put a caveat when it comes to who you are. And you'd find some ridiculous conversations as this, when you're like this, you're better. When you're like this, you're better. So I don't know if you've heard this, but nice is not good these days to say in your vocabulary. But what angle of nice? So everything is overcomplicated. You know, they're supposed to be like a marker on what identity or personality is supposed to look like. Even if it is who you are. Like Marianne is a lovely girl, but maybe you don't like being called lovely for whatever reason, right? So when it comes to simplifying character, why has it become complicated to the extent where good things appear bad and bad things appear good, and you know, the like?
I think it's just a societal issue. Like society always will question or will try to box us into something. And you know, the danger of that is that it keeps changing. I think we were even speaking earlier, like even in terms of the standards of beauty, they keep changing. In terms of the way you've mentioned the nice, it used to be a good thing, but now it's not. So when we let ourselves be governed by what society says, then you can be confused. And you also need to know that as human beings, we have like, we are all different. Like there's no this or that. It's not black or white. There is a lot in between, even in terms of personalities, even in terms of characters. So that is why at the core of everything, we really need to have our own identity other than what, you know, other people put on us.
So does it take courage to be who you are?
Absolutely, because sometimes you will be questioned or people will call you names, or, you know, like I mentioned, even with parents, you might choose a path that is totally different from what they wanted. So it takes courage, but at the end of the day, when you know who you are, then you will always find your people. You will always find someone who gets it and who gets you and really is okay with who you are. Okay,
so you're speaking about who you are, and the thing that changes is on the outside, meaning if your career, your status in life and the like. So how do you maintain your character despite the things in life happening, you know? People wither storms, they have challenges, you know, every other time, and also successes every other time. And those two things are very powerful, to the extent where they can alter a personality or character until someone says, you know what, Marianne has never been this kind of person, she was actually this way. Or we didn't know Marianne was strong, look at what she's achieved. So it could go either way, right? So in the light of that, please elaborate.
Ideally, you find that, like I mentioned, the issue would be if I don't really know my own identity, I keep changing myself to what I think.
But how do you go there? Yeah, so as you're answering, I know I've asked you a lot of things, but as you're answering that, how do you get to know that identity? What can you do?
self-discovery. So usually what that looks like is actually paying attention. You know, the way you get to meet someone new, like a friend or even a date, you take them out, you spend time with them, you ask them questions. So that's ideally what we should do with ourselves.
Right.
So you spend your own time, you learn about yourself. You can even do some personality tests online just to understand more. Why am I the way I am? Why do I do things the way I do them? But ideally you find that we are very busy focusing on the external and what is happening, that we rarely spend time with ourselves and just to introspect. And you see, that's why even we say, even as a parent or even in a relationship, you need to have your alone time as well, just to be in touch with who you are at the core of it. So I'd say self-discovery, but also therapy. For those who are having identity crisis, if you don't really understand yourself or you're questioning who you are, you can also work with a professional just to be able to ask you the right questions, because it's just about questioning yourself, like, what are my values, what do I like, what do I dislike, what are the things that I value, and all these things will lead you to that.
Okay, so all that will ground you from now what I previously asked about the shifts in life, the successes and the challenges.
Right.
That is what you can do to ground.
Right, right. Because at the end of the day, that is what you come back to in addition to the success. Because what you say, money changes people, but then people also say it shows who you are. So
exactly.
the example of success. So you find that when you already have this identity, for just knowing who you are, these things will not really change you. They'll just bring out who you are.
Okay. And what other things can help someone understand themselves better? Because we all know we do not come from a vacuum. We come from a line of families, generations. And most of the time when you're reading self-help books and the like, it's only coming down to, of course, your psyche. But if you go deeper, like, I mean, yourself, you'd know, it goes into how your mom is, your dad is, it goes into genetics. If you're predisposed to, depressive aspects, behavioral patterns and the like. So how should you approach that? Maybe if you're really interested and you seem to have an issue that doesn't seem to go away, or a character like, I like this one. So who was in my family was this giddy, or if I may say, or whatever.
Yeah. So the question is?
You can go that far. You can go that far in looking for that information from your family. Because sometimes we don't go far. We just go through, like, I'm Marianne and this is my personality. But what if you want to go deeper?
It's actually necessary, because at the end of the day, like I mentioned, your personalities, your character is shaped during your early years. So you really need to understand who are the people that really shaped you. Because even we say psychology is about understanding, like, why am I the way that I am? It's not just something I picked up recently. It's usually something that has been instilled in you over the years. And even as you mentioned, family, there's also the environment you grow up in. Like, a child learns through modeling what they see people do. So if I see some behavior is normalized, that's what I think is normal. But then also during, let's say, adulthood and everything, you might start to question that, is that really what I want? Like, even some people usually grow up, they want to get married at a certain age and all these things, and then later on they're like, do I really want to, or is it because it is what was modeled to me? So it is okay to question that and to see where all that comes from, but then also it's okay to change at any stage of your life if it is no longer working for you.
Okay. Well, you're here last time, we spoke about owning particular character traits into your personality, saying I'm an anxious person. I am usually very nervous, I think it is forgetting that we come from a place that makes us that, not entirely that. But it is so common in pop culture, which is one of the issues that, of course, affect, us, and then we can get identity crisis.
Yeah.
So what place should you get to say, hey, I am not an anxious person, that is not part of my personality, and that is not something I can claim, so that can give me an identity crisis.
Yeah. At the end of the day, if you have anything that is not working for you, that could be a character or just maybe a certain weakness. You know, like people like to say, oh, I am just an overthinker. But you can see that it's not working for you. It is causing you to be anxious all the time. Then you need to work on it. Like, you don't have to own it or feel like, oh my gosh, now I'm doomed. I'll always be like this for the rest of my life. You can be able to change it, and that's where now the things like self-improvement, self-development, therapy comes in, because now you can be able to be taken through that change. So nothing is cast on stone. You can always change it.
But at where should you be able to unafika kikomo wapi? You know, like where you're actually sick and tired of being sick and tired of that behavior, because like I said, some things are just so hard. So it's okay to say, I am this person, I'm an anxious person. So you own it, but doing the work for most people, as you would know, is difficult. So you stay in a character, and that's for men and women. You know, so where is that point you've seen that people reach and they go like, Marianne, I need therapy, because they don't want to be this person?
It's what you said, when you get sick of being sick of and tired. What basically that means is, if you notice, you know, a lot of people are not self-aware. So self-awareness is basically knowing who you are, knowing your strengths, knowing, like, paying attention to my thought patterns and my emotions. Some of us are on autopilot, but if you're more of a self-aware person, you really pay attention, then you can be like, you know what, this is not working for me, I don't like this, and I want to change it. But the issue would be if someone is not self-aware. That's why you find some people can even hurt people and they don't even realize. To them it's like, ah, I don't care, or that's just who I am. So it's more of self-awareness. Self-awareness can come in different ways. You can read books. You could just be listening to TV today and realize, oh, kumbe, I have identity crisis, and want to change that. It could also come from feedback, like people telling you, by the, I don't like the way you do this thing, and then now you can now start to change, because there's usually something we call, that now is psychological, Johari's window. It's about like the different aspects that really help you to uncover who you are. And there are things that you will find you know other people know. There are those that other people know about you, but you don't know. Yeah. And then there are those that you really keep a secret. But then also over time, there are those that were never open, but you get to discover over time. So I would say it is very important for us to just be conscious and start the self-awareness, self-discovery journey. Just be intentional about it.
Okay, you said something very important that I've had for so many years, that most people are not self-aware.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not new. It's just something that, like, you'd be aware of anything. Like, I can read well, this is how long I take to get a point or to achieve something, but just that awareness, it's almost like impossible for some people. Why is that?
It's not impossible, it's maybe they don't know that they are not. So ideally, like I mentioned, we live in a busy world. So you wake up.
But for our country, let's narrow it down to Nairobi.
Yeah.
It is not impossible, I agree. It's just that it's something that has been there for such a long time.
Yeah.
That if you speak to most therapists or psychologists like yourself, they'll tell you our society, right now, many people are doing a lot of wellness things, so they're getting in touch with themselves, which is amazing. Yeah. But also we have the opposite that is true, that has been consistent, which is lack of self-awareness. You just wake up, things are shifting, painting, what you're like, okay, I'm just going to let that sit. Yeah. Now figure out, why do you think we are like that?
Some people usually are afraid of what they will find. There are people who tell me, I don't like to be alone just because of the thoughts that come to my mind. So we are always running away from that by keeping ourselves busy, by drinking, by scrolling, but we just don't want to tune in. And that is because we are afraid of what we will find. Ideally, every human being has what we call a shadow, which is like the dark part of you, and that is the weaknesses that we have. And when we learn to embrace that, that is what makes you who you are. You know, no human being is perfect or that they don't have a weakness. It's just that people hate to admit that, and they feel like that would mean I am weak or there's something wrong with me. But you know what, when you face it, that's when now you can get to work on it.
Okay. Right. So, Marianne, with that, we're taking a short break. We'll be back with more of this conversation. And, of course, Marianne will be telling us more ways on which you can have, you know, that core identity. Like she mentioned, it keeps changing over and over as we get older. So there's more discovery to who we are. Do stay with us. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, Mr. DJ.
Lucky.
Anguka now. Anguka now.
When it comes to playing the best music videos, we've got you covered. K24 TV Mix Master. When it comes to a lineup of all the fresh DJs, we've got that too.
Yeah.
Check this out. Caribbean.
Controversy starts from the teacher reader.
Afrobeat. Our famous and infamous Kenyan